what about me? What is it that I need to help me get in touch with the deepest parts of who I am so that I can express those deepest parts as the gifts that are a part of me and enhance life, help life? And so once again, it comes back to what the story took me toward, and that is self-care, caring for myself, doing the things that help me be the fullest me that I can possibly be.
When life throws a challenge at you, one thing is certain. To find a resolution for every issue, every problem, for everybody, there's more than one way. Hi, I'm Whitney Ross, and with me is my good friend Thom Rasnick.
Hi, Whitney.
Hey, Thom, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Today, we're going to talk about stories and the power of stories to help us navigate ourselves through those difficult situations we face in life.
Oh, great.
You know, stories are part of our life from the very beginning, from our parents, grandparents, other people, neighbors, sharing stories. It's just something that's an early part of our life that can really be helpful to us as we're faced with challenging circumstances.
Great. Well, that reminds me of a story.
Really?
Yeah, it does. It reminds me of a story because religion and spirituality and all the stuff that has to do with trying to help people live their lives in a particular way are primarily about story. Stories there to kind of help us engage life in a way so that we don't actually have to go out and live it to experience it. So, for instance, I preached a sermon around a story, a particular kind of story, a story that the Bible calls a parable, which was about a fig tree. Mm-hmm. So it was about a fig tree. It was about a fig tree that wasn't producing fruit. And because the fig tree wasn't producing fruit, the guy who owned the vineyard, or whatever fig tree areas are called, decided, just cut the thing down. Mm-hmm. We're not going to, it's of no use. But then a gardener comes along and said, no, wait a minute. Let me take care of this tree for a little bit. Let me really, really dig around it and put some fertilizer on it. And then let's see what happens. Because I bet you what's going to happen is fruit will come. And that kind of a story invited me in to think about the fig tree as my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I think stories like that, just like you're saying, we're told stories all the time, and the stories that work best for me are ones that invite me into it to help me identify with something within the story.
Okay.
And that's what makes it so possible to tell the same story over and over and over again and get something new out of the story each time, mm-hmm. in a way. So as I was reading the story and praying, meditating with the story, what I was invited in to see is myself as the tree. And I thought to myself, well, what in my life prevents me from living my life so fully and completely that fruit comes out? So the gifts that I have, what I mean by that is the gifts that I have come out. Because, the idea of a tree producing fruit is a really amazing thing. Mm-hmm. Okay? So the fruit is the highest expression of what that tree is. That's what the fruit, I mean, it has to have everything, in a sense, just right in order for the best fruit to come out. So it's got to have sunlight, but not too much sunlight. It's got to have water, but not too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of geeking out on trees here for a second, but and the reason is because this is what stories do. They invite me in to identify with this and say, okay, well, if that's true for trees, for fruit trees to express themselves in such a powerful way, that then therefore enhances all of life, what about me? What is it that I need to help me get in touch with the deepest parts of who I am so that I can express those deepest parts as the gifts that are a part of me and enhance life, help life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, once again, it comes back to what the story took me toward, and that is self-care. Caring for myself. Doing the things that help me be the fullest me that I can possibly be.
And I think an interesting thing with stories is, a first reaction sometimes can be, oh, I've heard that story before. And so I have heard this story before.
Yeah.
And when I've heard it shared, I'm glad you shared it in this way, because that's not the outcome or what I took away from it before. When it was shared before, it was very negative about the tree, and the tree was not producing, and so there was something wrong with the tree.
Right.
And it was kind of used in a very different way. And so, like we said, stories have multiple meanings.
Right.
So to hear you talk about it, where you're talking about the fruit as this ultimate expression of who the tree is, and you think about, fruit is not for the tree necessarily. It could be for food for an animal or a person, or just in beauty for the area that it's around. So it's really neat that you've taken a story that I thought I knew, and you've made me look at it in a totally different way.
Isn't that cool? Aren't I the best guy ever for being able
do
to
it
do
again?
Yeah. No. I mean, seriously, I think unfortunately sometimes with religious stories in particular, it's bad news. I mean, it's presented as bad news over and over and over again, and the bad news essentially is, yeah, there is something wrong with you, and either you get your act together or you're out. And I suppose if that's the way you're going to see the story and that helps you perhaps live your life, okay. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't help me. It just scares me.
Right.
And it just makes me feel like I'm never worthy. I'm never making it. I can never get to whatever it is it seems like I'm supposed to be. And that's not very helpful. So for me, like I said, when I went into this story, I mean, it was like a burning bush in a sense. It was so apparent to me that the tree isn't bad. The tree isn't bad. Mm-hmm. The tree is just perhaps sick. I can go with that.
Okay.
And part of the sickness is care. Part of the sickness is that there's not enough care. It hasn't been appreciated enough there hasn't been enough time spent on caring. Okay, so once again, if I pull that to myself, I would say, take as much time as you need in order to care for yourself, because the fruit that you have is what the world needs.
So
it doesn't
there's
need
something missing if that's not there.
Yes, there's something missing. The world doesn't need one more ultimatum or one more person to feel bad about him or herself. Mm-hmm. We got enough of that. The world and one of the most powerful things that we can do, one of the most life-giving things that we can do, is care for ourselves so that we can give, so that we have something to give.
Yeah.
And I don't know, sometimes I think people think that it's self-care is selfish. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we often neglect our own self-care for a variety of different reasons. Either just in trying to prove something to someone else, or just not wanting to put the focus on ourselves. And sometimes, we're told it's all about others and giving to others and serving others. Mm-hmm. And but can we really do that in our best way if we're not whole or not taking care of ourselves to do that?
Yeah, that's the question, and I think everybody has to answer that for themselves. And for me, like I said, where the story led me was, no, it's not selfish to do that. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, what it is taking care of one of the greatest gifts God has given to you, and that is you. That who and what you are is valuable and important for the world. I mean, and there's no reason to get a big head about that. I mean, I guess you could, but there's no reason to, because the idea is this is given. What we're talking about is caring for ourselves so that those innate gifts can come out.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful thing. You know, I mean, I can imagine that message is one that we don't hear enough. You know, we hear the other side of it, but being able to approach it through a story and see yourself as the tree, you know, to get to something much deeper than that. I mean, it's much deeper than on the surface, and it means something different for each person, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, can I give you an example?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'll give you an example from my own life, okay? Because I do think here's where stories become personal, okay? If I keep it at arm's length and see it outside of myself, just in other people, that's fine, and that might be helpful in its own way. But for me, in order for the story to be really powerful, I got to make it personal, okay? So when I get into the self-care mode, then I've got to say, given the kind of person that I am, with my temperament and the way that I was raised and on and on and on, what really helps me care for myself? Okay, so there's the general things of clean water and clean air and good food and enough sleep, and those things. And those things are a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we just take those, and perhaps those are for everybody to some degree. But when I get to me and myself personally, what I've had to come to terms with is that I am an introverted, feeling male in an extroverted, activity-based, get-her-done society. And the thing is there's nothing wrong with either of those. But I've spent a lot of my life thinking there's something wrong with me because I'm not that.
Gotcha.
Okay, and what I found is when I try to live in the fast-paced rush, get stuff done, make it happen, when I try to live that way, I can do it for a while and then I just get sick. Meaning I don't feel well, I'm irritable, hard to be around, impatient, and I don't want to live like that. Okay, so when I don't do that, when I don't rush, when I don't try to compare myself to other people and what they're doing, and I can just start with me and what helps me, then what I come to is, and this is kind of like daily maintenance, okay? What I come to is, after I've gotten enough sleep, after I've written down my dreams from the night, then what I need to do is go outside and go for a walk. Simple as that. Go outside and go for a walk. And it doesn't always work, but when it works, what happens is I see myself as a part of all this, of all the beauty, of everything that's a part of nature, everything that's a part of life. I'm a part of this. I have my part to play. I don't have to do everything, but I have to do my part. And that connection, that sense of just feeling like, yes, this life is good and I'm a part of it, is extremely helpful for me to begin the day. And so when I'm walking along, usually in order to do that, my mind will start to wander into things that I have to do for the day, and I try to come back to where I am. And sometimes I can use a example like, helpful things like, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? What am I feeling? To put myself in my body in that place. Okay? And like I said, when I do that, there's just this overwhelming sense of connection. Okay? Then I come to work and we have a meditation here at the church. And I go into that meditation in a place that's just very helpful. Not always, and meditate for 20 to 30 minutes. Just silent prayer is what I would call it. And after doing all that, then I feel like I'm right where I need to be. And the gift that comes out of that I've discovered in myself is I'm able to listen. I'm able to truly listen and pay attention to others in a way that I'm not able to do when my head is jumbled up from rush and hurry and accomplishment and get things done. And maybe somebody else can do that, but for me,
for you, yeah.
Right. And so I had to come to terms with that because it's not real sexy, is it? It's not like, whoa, let's put that on a bubblegum card, right? Bats right, throws left, listens well.
Yeah. But, what you're talking about is really practical.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're not talking about going off on a silent retreat for a week or, it's something as simple as a walk for you can help you kind of reframe and reposition where you need to be.
Yes, yes.
Which is great. I love the idea. I mean, that it can be something that small, and for each person to have the permission to, what it is for you, big or small, that, that can make the difference.
That can make the difference. And to trust that, to trust yourself to know that. Right? Because I think each of us in our own ways, we know that about ourselves. And so to reclaim that kind of like trusting that inner voice, that inner sense of, yeah, this is right, this is what I need, is so powerful and important as opposed to everything I think and everything, that's not what I should be thinking or that's not what I want or any of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's, you'd mentioned being a good listener. I think that's listening to ourselves is a part of that too. Yeah. And we're not always good at that. No. I mean, even if we're a good listener, it may be tuning out our own voice, or the own inner voice.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because in a sense, that's the very thing I think that the whole parable leads me into trying to see as a part of self-care. Is that part of self-care is listening to self.
Yeah.
Listening to what's going on, listening to what is going on inside of myself, inside of yourself, as opposed to always just listening to what's going on outside.
So speaking of parables, there are a lot of them out there. I think we looked it up, and there are 37 biblical parables that are out there. So we put up a poll to see what our listeners thought and what were some parables that they really connected with.
Yeah.
You want to take a guess?
Fig tree was number one, I'm sure. I'm positive that it was the...
Surprisingly, it was not.
Oh, really?
I know, shocking.
Come on.
I know, I thought there was something wrong with my phone. Good Samaritan was one that popped up, very popular. Really, people felt like that they connected with.
Right. I'm vaguely aware of that.
You heard of that one?
Yeah.
Prodigal Son was another one that was way up there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, there's a lot of variety in those parables.
Yeah,
which is great because there's a lot of variety in people and what they need and what they hear and connect with. So
that's right.
It's great.
That's right.
People can hear different things.
Pardon me.
No, go ahead.
That's just it. There's all different types, and the meanings in many ways are endless based on where I am as I enter into the story and how deeply I'm willing to enter into the story, without judgment. Once again. So if we're taking the fig tree, a very negative way to see it is, oh yeah, I'm terrible, I'm bad, I'm not producing, I'm horrible. They should just do away with me. All right. If I'm in that place, my goodness.
Yeah.
So it depends on where. I'd say almost 80 to 90% of the meaning I'm going to get from any particular story is where I am. And then the other is the story itself.
Tell me more about that.
It's going to depend on how I enter into it, if I'm even willing to enter into it.
Right.
So if I'm kind of the kind of person who's like, just tell me the answer.
Yeah.
Just give me an answer. Okay. Not going to be too good. You're probably not going to enter into a story. It's probably just going to annoy you.
Right.
Right? Okay. But if I'm in a place where quick answers or answers that somebody else has given me, I've tried and they're not working, perhaps then I get to a place where, okay, maybe something like this will help. The best way to probably get into a story is when I'm not in a real desperate place. You know, where
More open to be able to
yeah,
hear it.
I'm just more, it's kind of
Yeah.
like we're talking here and now, and there's no real threats going on or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can enter into it, so that when those threats happen, we have that
Got it
grounding from what we've experienced in and through the story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean by it depends on where you are. And in different points and times in your life, you might enter into the story in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's another incredible thing about stories is just given the season that you're in, it can be very different. You
That's
know, you
right.
take the fig tree is a really small story.
It is.
It's not very long, but obviously there's a lot in there. I mean, and you shared one thing that you gleaned out of it and what it meant for you and how that connected for you. I mean, there are so many more probably in there too.
No doubt about it. And
Yeah.
it'll depend on how you enter into it, what you relate to. And it might be you relate to the get your act together or you're going to get thrown out. And maybe that's a motivator for you. I don't know. But like I said, all I can say is for me, hearing the story presented that way over and over and over again has not been helpful.
Yeah.
So there's more than one way.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. It reminds me of a story that I heard not that long ago about a young girl that was a student in her classroom, and she was a problem student because she couldn't sit still and she was always disrupting others. And so the teacher called her parents and said, "Hey, we need you to come in and talk about your daughter. She's really not where she needs to be and she's causing issues. We need to find a way to kind of correct this." So they came in and they met and they talked with the daughter there. And so she's sitting there on the stool, kind of sitting on her hands, just very fidgety. And after they talked for a while and they asked her about her behavior and what she was doing, and did she realize that others weren't doing what she was doing, they stepped out of the room for a moment so that the teacher could talk with the parent. And as he left the room, he turned on some music. And then as they left the room, they looked back and watched the girl. And he's like, "I want you to watch her." And so as soon as the music started playing and they left the room, she got up and started moving around and kind of dancing to the music. And the person said, "I'm realizing she's not sick. She's just a dancer."
Uh-huh.
And so in talking with them, they decided, well, maybe we need to find a way that she can dance. She's going to learn through movement. And so in connecting her with dance classes and those kinds of things, she became a choreographer for several Broadway plays and is this well-known person. But just that shift in the idea of what looked like a problem was her gift.
Isn't that, that's so great.
It was just, it couldn't be seen in that certain way.
Yeah.
So people looking at the same situation, but somebody having insight and just saying, wait, that's not a problem, actually.
Oh, that is so fantastic. That is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I'm going to cry. No, really, it's lovely. It's just lovely. Because imagine life like that.
Well, and I think how many people have been in a situation where maybe they've been labeled or categorized because they didn't fit the situation that they were in. And maybe it was the situation, not them, that was the problem, like the tree.
Right.
It wasn't the tree that was the problem. It was the environment around the tree that didn't let it be what it needed to be.
Yes, just like that. Just like that. What a beautiful life, right? What a beautiful life she gets to live because somebody could see that.
Yeah. So when we're talking about those biblical stories, how do we go about making them relevant to today? Some of them feel older or historical or from another time, another culture, another place. But if we're talking about that as a tool that can help us, how do we find those connections?
Well, I think it's hard to do alone. I think it's really hard to do alone if you haven't had any kind of spent any kind of long-term time engaging Scripture with people who can teach you, can help guide. So the first thing I would say in terms of helpfulness would be find a group, find some place that you can read it with others, but read it in this way that's open and inviting and engaging, and not so much in a way that here's the answer.
Right.
and this is the only answer, and it'd be kind of like with the dancer, this is the way it has to be, and you fit into it.
Mm-hmm.
No, once again, there are places like that in the Bible. There are places where it's like the Ten Commandments. Okay, don't do this, do that. All right, that
More direct.
more
Yeah,
direct. But in order to do what we're doing, I think you need to have some help, have some people to help you.
Yeah, I think that's a great bit of advice, to find other people to engage with.
Yeah,
when you're engaging the story.
because the Bible is, it's an ancient collection of books that are translated down through the centuries, translated and edited and translated, and it can be a very foreign world from the 21st century that we live within, and so somehow or another we have to learn how to translate it.
Yeah.
And when we don't, then it can be very problematic.
Yeah. Cool. So, Thom, as we kind of wrap this up, I'd love to hear kind of your takeaways of the different things that we've talked about. What are some points that the listener can really take with them?
Okay, so the first one, I would say that stories are a part of our lives. We grow up with them, they're with us all the time, and they can help us flourish. They can help us live fully. Mm-hmm. So that would be the first one. Second one would be more specific to the fig tree, and that is self-love and self-care are not selfish. So that would be the second one. And the third one would be sometimes in your life, it might be the situation that you find yourself in rather than you. Kind of like the dancer story that you told. Mm-hmm. So those would be the three. Okay, great. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope you'll come back and join us again and tell a story this week. Share one with someone that you know, and just enjoy that. Thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than One Way podcast, brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Practice in Knoxville, Tennessee. We really appreciate your time and would love to hear your feedback. You can reach us by emailing hello@morethanonewaypod.com, or you can connect with us on social media using the handle @morethanonewaypod. If you found this episode helpful, we hope that you'll share it with your friends, with your family, with people you work with all the people who you know. Thank you, and take care.